Good morning, Mr. Pretorius. Good morning,
Morning.
everybody.
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes, you have a matter to deal with first.
Yes, you will recall last week, Chair, it was agreed that Mr. Sikakani would address you briefly in regard to the evidence of the ambassador.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chair. With your leave, may I pull this
Yes,
down?
yes, thank you.
Chair, we're very grateful for the opportunity you gave us. We know your schedule is tight. I represent Mr. Arthur Fraser, but in order not to waste time, what I'm going to say for him applies to Mr. Manzini so that there's no difference.
Oh, okay, so you represent both?
I represent both at this
Okay.
point, for these points I'm going to make today.
Okay, okay.
Chair, the job is slightly easier now that me and my colleague, Mr. Pretorius, have sort of resolved what set us apart. But the points that we wanted to put on record are the following. Mr. Fraser is probably the only implicated person who's been accused of treason in these proceedings. And as the Chair knows, he is the former DG of State Security Agency. And he never received, on the 24th or 26th of November last year, 2019, when Mr. Njenje came here, implicated him, he never received any notice, 3.3 notice, as it applies now with Mr. Makhubela as well. And we make this point to record because a great deal of evidence was given which relates to very serious matters. Ordinarily, Mr. Fraser would have liked to die with the secrets he's going to have to disclose to these proceedings. But it's only because he's been accused of treason that he reluctantly comes here. And he comes here, Chair, to complete your picture of this thing called state capture, to complete it because what the Chair was told, at least from the intelligence point of view, which is not something that ordinarily should be done at a place like this, is this. His evidence is going to be important because basically he's going to complete the picture for Chair about secrets of the state, of this state, about who exactly is subverting our state. And he's going to complete the picture because unlike many other witnesses, he's going to have to share the secrets with the Chair relating not just to those who are in the administrative arm of government. He'll have to complete this by doing something he reluctantly does to tell the Chair about things that relate to the president or the presidents of this country, past and present, that relates to the judges, that relate to the parliamentarians, so those three arms, because the Chair will have completed that when he knows what's been happening there. As I said, I've advised him not to because he signed an oath never to, but he's been accused of treason now. Chair, we've agreed with Mr. Pretorius that it's clear, it's not denied that he was not served with notice. The affidavit here tells you that what happened to him is that a certain number, in fact, the affidavit says this, from Patrick Mlambo. He says, I was never asked to obtain Mr. Fraser's contact details in relation to the 3.3. So it's admitted by the commission, at least the secretariat, that he was never served with all of these serious accusations against him. The same applies to Mr. Manzini. And so they've curtailed the dispute because what they did was to send the Rule 3.3 notice not just to Mr. Fraser's son's cell number, but to Mr. Fraser's son's wife's cell number, which Mr. Fraser wants to talk about at some point because it tells you about what's happening behind the scenes, that people would have his son's cell number, and that's where they served him. And when they say it was not intentional, Well, recently, this is another one sent to him where he works now. So the commission knows where he is. But when it comes to these very serious accusations against him, they didn't know. But they've just sent him things that relate to BOSASA, where he's national commissioner now. And so what we would ask the chair to rule on.
Well, I was about to say, I'm surprised why anything to be served on him would be sent to his son or whoever, because is he not known to be at correctional services?
Absolutely. I think that's why they say the worst thing than a spy is an inefficient spy. Whoever has the numbers, whatever they do with the family numbers of the Frasers, did not know which number relates to Mr. Fraser. But I think that's been sorted out. What we would like the chair to rule, and I've raised this with my learned friend, I don't think he denies it, and we thank him because he has curtailed the job a bit, is that we would like the time for Mr. Fraser and Mr. Manzini to file their statements in relation to Mr. Njenje and in relation to Mr. Maqethuka. And as I said, because Mr. Maqethuka's evidence is not complete, we are told he was correcting it as he was going, we would ask that for both of them, their days for reasonable notice run at the point when we receive the finalized affidavit of Mr. Maqethuka, from which point we will then file a statement with the items that I related to the chair, and then it's a separate process, see whether we apply to cross-examine or call any witness, but we're not there yet. We just think that is what we would like the chair to rule. And most of the other disputes we would have raised are unnecessary because Mr. Pretorius and I have tried to resolve them so that at least today we just get your ruling, which makes it easier for both my clients to be able to file and assist this commission, and probably their evidence will complete what this commission has to do. Those are our
No,
submissions.
that's fine. It's always a pity if Rule 33 notices are not served at all or on time. I don't now pay attention as much as I used to when the commission started to whether Rule 33 notices have been served, because those who may remember, when we were starting, the first thing counsel would deal with before leading a witness would be to deal with 33 notices. So over time, I thought that people would, the commission's people make sure that 33 notices are served on time, and when they are not served on time, condonation application is made and so on. I guess that in all probability most are served, but still there are some that are not served timelessly and so on. And wherever the commission has found out that it hasn't done well, it should be big enough to apologize and try to do better in the future. With regard to the filing of any affidavits by Mr. Fraser and Mr. Manzini, I am aware that Mr. Manzini sent an email towards the end of last week and requested an opportunity, and I'm under the impression that a response was sent to him on Friday to say that he must just calculate 14 days from when he received the affidavit of Mr. Maqethuka, and then file his affidavit and apply for condonation if he files it outside 14 days. But the idea is simply to say where there may have been problems with 33 notices, there will be accommodation. There should be no problem. What I don't know, Mr. Skakane, is whether whatever is left of Mr. Maqethuka's evidence whether it's likely to relate to your clients. Mr. Pretorius might know better, but from what I saw, I wasn't sure that it would be so, but we can make an arrangement in terms of which the 14 days runs from a date that one can determine now, if there needs to be certainty about whether he might still include matters that relate to your clients.
Well, Chair, 2 points, which are my last point. So let me start with the last one. One is that, well, if the Chair looks at the affidavit, I mean, the evidence of Mr. Makhubela, of Mr. Njenje, and Mr. Moshake, the Chair will see that they try to analyze different intelligence paradigms in the world and the country. And most of it, I think, will be complete when the other intelligence officers give you that. It may not relate to them, but I think the version you are told about paradigms of intelligence on its own, I know many intelligence agencies are laughing at us that our intelligence officers are telling the world how weak and how strong we are, but we are here now. So that's the first point. So it may help this commission to listen to the other people who led that environment.
Yes,
give
no,
you that.
I certainly want to hear.
The last point is this, Chair. As I said, Mr. Fraser and Mr. Manzini come here reluctantly to breach an oath they took that they would die with secrets of the state, is that we assume, Chair, that simply because the other 3 former leaders of intelligence have testified and laid bare things that relate to security, my clients are also indemnified from breaching that oath because, as I said, when they talk about the PEN project, the Chair will realize that the man who truly led that is Mr. Fraser, and because of the nature of what it is, the legitimacy of it and what it does to the intelligence service, is that he then has access to secrets that he otherwise shouldn't share, but he will. And we assume, Chair, that because the other 3 have been allowed to deal with those secrets, he is equally indemnified for doing so before the Chair, because it's an important commission. But otherwise, it's something ordinarily I have advised him not to do, and he has felt no intelligence officer should do, but there is no choice, and we assume he won't be arrested for sharing those secrets with the Chair.
No, thank you very much. Let me hear what Mr. Pretorius has to say. I just say that nobody has asked me to indemnify him from anything, and I doubt that I have power to indemnify anybody. Thank you. Let me
Thank
hear.
you, Chair. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly,
Yes.
the final affidavit of the witness, the Ambassador Makhubela, will also contain some corrections as emerged in evidence. So it's probably fairer to the implicated persons that the 14 days run from the time the evidence is complete. Second point is that in defense of the Secretariat and the investigators, they go to extensive efforts under great pressure to obtain relevant addresses and correct addresses for implicated persons. In this case, as will appear in the affidavit, which we should hand up to you because it's in the possession of the other party, to which my learned friend referred, the device to which the Rule 33 was sent was actually registered in the implicated person's name over quite a substantial period of time. What happened to it thereafter, we will no doubt hear, but that is the root of the confusion. The third point, great emphasis has been laid by my learned friend on the nature of the evidence given. It may be clear to us, but it should be clear to the public as well, Chair, that however serious an allegation, it doesn't constitute a finding or approach of the Commission unless and until you have heard all the evidence and made a finding. And then lastly, Chair, the Commission, as we understand it, is not in a position to give indemnities.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think I need to make a ruling as such, but I think that we'll all accept that Mr. Manzini and Mr. Fraser's 14 days will run from after they have received the supplementary affidavit or affidavits that relating to Mr. Makhubela that will be served on them.
Yes, Chair. Despite the adversarial nature of our relationship, before you, Chair, we are colleagues and we'll sort it out.
No, that's fine. No, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Those who wish to be excused are excused. Mr. Noshe, are you ready?
Chair, we are ready to proceed.
Yes.
Chair, today is the hearing of the evidence of Mrs. Nomvula Mokonyane, and the witness is here to testify. And Chair, I will then, after she has been sworn in, and just take her through the file that we have, and so that she can find her way when she's testifying through the file. And Chair, before we even get there, I've spoken to the people who help us with the files and pagination. We have agreed that this file, which contains the evidence and the statements relating to Mrs. Mokonyane, that it will be Exhibit B. Remember, Chair, I'm sorry,
Bundle, not exhibit.
It will be Bundle B.
But I'm sure there's been bundle B before.
I'm told, Chair, that the bundle numbering started with evidence of Charles Leroux, and that was then labeled Leah Bundle A. And then they say this will be then Bundle B.
I hope that information is accurate, because we don't want to end up with two bundles B.
No, I was assured that the bundle system started with Charles Leroux's evidence.
Okay, so this will be bundle B then.
Then it will be Bundle B, my lord.
But before you proceed, I think there are lawyers representing the witness who need to get a chance to place themselves on record, and I think they can place themselves on record. I don't know if I hope the mics where they are working, then they don't need to go to the podium for now. Yes.
May it please you, Mr. Chairperson, I appear for the witness in this matter. If I may remove my mask. Thank you.
Yes,
We were
yes.
instructed by Madlanga attorneys, and we are here in the spirit of cooperation to cooperate with the Commission.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Noshe. So this will be bundle B.
Yes.
And it has, they included notices here. I think notices should be kept separate from this, because we don't really need the notices. They can be in separate file, but there's nothing we can do about it now. We'll keep them there, but for future notices and correspondence that have got no evidential value should not be included. So that what we should have in the lever arch file should only be statements and documents that have got evidential value.
Understand, Chair.
Okay. All right, yes, proceed.
Chair, the genesis of the evidence that is to be presented before you is the evidence of Mr. Agrizzi. And there's a statement he gave to the commission, gave evidence. Thereafter, there was a supplementary statement, and then Mrs. Mokonyane filed a response, and then Mr. Agrizzi filed a reply thereto. I will take, before Mrs. Mokonyane testifies, I'll take her through just to the file so that she knows what document, where the document is. And what I also intend doing, Chair, is Ms. Mokonyane will testify, and then I'll then take her to the point that she's responding to, and then so that it then makes sense when she's testifying about. Because what she has done in her affidavit is to respond directly to the statement of Mr. Agrizzi, both the main statement and the main statement and the supplementary statement. So, Chair, with your leave, can she be sworn in, and then I'll take you through the statements before she testifies.
She will be sworn in, and then we can talk about what you propose to do after that.
Thank you.
Please administer the oath of affirmation.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Chair, I didn't realize the mark is. This chair was meant for tall people. They never realized that a short person like me will come. So it was high up, but it's now to my height. And
Yes, okay.
Please state your full names for the record.
My name is Nomvula Mokonyane.
Do you have any
I'm
objection?
sorry. You can take off your mask for when you are just taking the oath so that everything can be heard properly. Well, you can move it a little bit. You don't have to take it off completely.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I saw yesterday that they said it's also unhygienic to put it on the chin.
Yes. Okay.
And I do have serious ailments, hence I'm very sensitive of my
No.
Yes.
Look, if that is so, maybe put it back, and then you'll just try to speak louder. Yeah. Okay.
Please state your full names for the record.
My name is Nomvula Mokonyane.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes, I do.
Do you swear that the evidence will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. You may be seated. Before Mr. Noshe proceeds, Ms. Mokonyane, I just want to thank you for coming to the commission to testify. And I want to also indicate that the reports that I have received recently are to the effect that you and your lawyers have given the commission cooperation in everything that they have been doing, and there's been a lot of cooperation from your side and from the side of your lawyers. And I just want to record the Commission's appreciation for that cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe before he goes further, I must also say you will be asked questions by him. I will also ask some questions. Listen to the questions carefully. If you don't understand the question, say so, it will be repeated. Answer the questions to the best of your ability and as far as you remember. He has a duty to ask questions to try and get to the truth of the matters that we are looking at, and he would be doing that to the best of his ability. I have to satisfy myself that I've got all the information and clarification that I may need, because in the end, I must decide matters, and it's important that I should understand your version, I should understand what you say, I should understand what everyone else says. So I thought I must just explain that, but this is the opportunity to put your side of the story and to deal with whatever matters. So use this opportunity to make sure that your side of the story is heard.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Noche?
Thank you. Mrs. Mokonyane, I'm sure you have a black file in front of you, actually a file. Now, the statement to which you responded, it would be appearing on page, when I refer, Ms. Mokonyane, to pages, they will be, if you look at the documents in front of you, there is the number in red. So the page number, when I refer to a page number, it will be a number which is in red.
Yeah.
All right.
Just one sec, Mr. Noche. It's quite dark inside. The technicians or whoever must just do something so that we have better lighting in the room. I've previously asked that there should be a lamp next to where the witness stands, because sometimes it's so dark, I don't know whether everybody can read documents when the lighting is like that. Does it look like you'll be able to read, Ms. Mokonyane?
I will try, Chairperson. Thank
You will
you for
be
your
able.
consideration.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thank you. We'll proceed in the meantime.
Ms. Mokonyane, check, they will be at the top, page 7, 007.
Yes.
That is the evidence of Mr. Agrizzi. I'm just showing you where the statements are, and then we'll come back to deal with them. And then that goes to page 11. And then if you look at the dividers, there are
Maybe
these-
you must just mention that when you refer to page numbers, you won't be calling the NPM and 00, you'll just say 7, 8,
Yes.
and so that she will understand. You understand that?
You understand?
Yes, I do. The red.
Yeah, the red one, yeah. And then I won't call T20 NPM 00, I'll just refer to page.
To page.
The page number, but it's the red number that I'm referring to. Then what will also help us, you'll see there are dividers.
Yes.
They are colored, multicolored. So a document is, I will refer to the section where it is. I firstly refer you to the divider and then to the number, to the page number, all right. Now your statement will be under divider 4. That's your answering statement on page 19. And then we jump from there so if you go, can you go to divider 10? And then on page 3881. That's the supplementary affidavit of Mr. Agrizzi. And you have referred to it also in your statement.
Page 381.
No, 3881.
Well, is it 388.1?
388.1, I beg your pardon.
38. Is it 381 or
No, 388.1.
I don't have
You see,
point
I think
anything.
what could be misleading, the red indicator is in the middle.
Oh, yes, I see there, the supplementary.
Yes, supplementary.
Yeah,
Is
but
the check,
why is
It's
the
numbered
page
in the
number?
middle.
the page is in the middle, yes.
Yeah, why do they write the page number in the middle on that page when for every other page it's at the corner?
This has been the,
That is what is confusing.
yeah, I apologize, Chair, and
Yes, you may continue.
yes. Then, Mokonyane, we then go back. Then go back to divider 6.
Should there not have been another divider just before his Mr. Agrizzi's supplementary affidavit?
There is 9 divided, there's 10. Agrizzi is under 10,
Divider
Chair.
6.
But I've taken the witness to divider 6.
Yeah, there should have been another divider for the supplementary, but I think we'll find our way.
Yes.
Okay.
And then divider 6, it's on page 064. Is the Mr. Agrizzi's reply to your affidavit. Now, Ms. Mokonyane, let's go back then to your affidavit and start there. Can you just, before you,
Well, just tell us again where it is.
Divider?
sorry, Ms. Mokonyane, it seems as if you suffer from the same illness as me, the height. Sorry, I apologize for both of us
Yeah.
for our height. That's what we got. We've got to live with.
Yeah,
No, this one, that one is fine.
okay. It's on which divider?
And the affidavit is on divider 4.
Yes.
Now,
1 second. Is somebody doing something about the lighting?
apparently, they say it's on your side somewhere.
Well, I'm talking more about in the room.
Apparently the connection is there in order to get light. They must, they
Must I
must do
adjourn so
something.
that somebody can do that?
Maybe,
Let me adjourn so that they can connect that.
No, that's fine.
It should have been connected before I came in.
That's fine.
We'll adjourn for 5 minutes. We adjourn.
Nansi,
looks better. Yes. Okay, let's continue.
Chairperson,
Yes,
may I beg your indulgence?
yes.
Before I get led on the affidavit, I would also wish to address yourself with due respect.
You would like to?
I would wish to make a statement before, if
Yes,
you may permit.
that's fine. You may do so. The last time I allowed somebody to make a statement before starting their evidence, what happened is that they implicated certain people, other people in their statement, and we didn't know in advance. So I'm hoping that you won't implicate anybody.
Not at all.
Yes, okay, yeah. Your statement, you'd like about what, 5 minutes?
Yes, if you give me 5
Yeah,
minutes,
okay.
I'll do my best.
Yes, okay. You may go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks for your consideration also for affording me the period to mourn. And finally, I have presented myself before the Commission, and I promise to continue cooperating with your good self. Chairperson, just as a precursor to the affidavit I've submitted, I just want to put it on record that for the better part of my life, since the age of 15, I have been part of many South Africans who have availed themselves to be directly active in fighting, in suffering and sacrificing for a non-racial, a non-sexist and a united democratic South Africa. Throughout until today, here in this particular commission, I've come knowing very well, Chair, that it is still part of that journey I have made a commitment towards, of paying the price for my commitment and determination to fight any injustice against me, my comrades, family, and all other South Africans. The submissions that has led to me being here today, I find them extremely defamatory. I find them full of contradictions by someone who has had ample time and opportunity afforded to him exclusively. I find that they smack of hatred. I find that they are very insensitive. I find that they seem to be an act of excessive desperation for the reasons that are better known by Mr. Agrizzi, to discredit me, destroy the little of what remains of my character, my family, and myself in particular. The assertions that have been made of my political influence of the president, as it is stated in his affidavit, also shows the naivety and ignorance that he himself, Mr. Agrizzi, has on how the ANC functions, together with his witnesses. And it goes as far as to say in page 467, paragraph 10, that I have even gone to an extent of having a serious influence on President Comrade Thabo Mbeki. They've fallen short, Chairperson, of even saying I had influence on Comrade President Nelson Mandela. The above assertions indicate that both him, Mr. Agrizzi, and his allies do not understand nor know the ANC, nor even know me as a person. I belong, Chair, and I'm a member of the African National Congress. I have and I enjoy full democratic rights within the ANC, including the choice of a leader I prefer. At no point, Chair, have I never been loyal nor supportive of any leader democratically elected, even in instances where I have directly contested a position and lost. I would embrace the outcomes and rally behind the elected leadership, executive, and even execute the mandate of that particular outcome. But I have also been, notwithstanding that, being a victim of those who had come with the notion of the 1996 class project in the scheme of politics. I have received dismissal letters dismissing me from the Central Committee of the South African Communist Party because of my loyalty to the movement and the leadership of the African National Congress. I've contested the current Treasurer General of the ANC for the position of a Gauteng chairperson. Yet even then, our families, our personal relationships have remained so close to each other, such that he remains a family friend a brother, and more in particular, an uncle to our kids, the same with me and his family. We went to Nazareth, Chairperson, in 2017. It is a known fact that my preference was on Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the current Minister of COGTA. I was even then part of a collective on behalf of the National Executive Committee of the NC that ran this conference properly, yet I was accused by some in the media for intending to collapse the conference, for having called for a recount and many other accusations. Even then, Chairperson, the conference ran and concluded its agenda, and immediately thereafter, we all had to rally behind the leadership collective and all the outcomes of the conference. When we moved to East London post-Nazareth, because the conference was in December, in January when we went to celebrate the anniversary of the ANC in 2018, I was amongst those, and there are those social media clips that show Nomvula Mokonyane publicly announcing in front of the media that delegates have spoken, the slates were broken in Nazareth, and we have to move on with the agenda as mandated by conference under the leadership of the current president of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. As for President Zuma, it is a known fact that I supported Comrade President Zuma against Comrade President Thabo Mbeki, strongly on my belief that he couldn't have more than 2 terms, as well as on my policy preferences and the choice I have made. I've served chair and led under Comrade President Zuma, including being part of his cabinet. I have never acted in the criminal justice system cluster. I've never been appointed in any of those positions. I've only served as a Minister of Water, and then post-Nazareth, I was moved from water, taken to communication, then moved from communication, taken to environmental affairs, and then post the elections, I opted not to go back to Parliament. I was part of the collective going to Mangaung chair that supported Comrade President Zuma for 2nd term, and for that, I also supported Comrade President Motlanthe, who, amongst others, he preferred himself to be a contestant against President Zuma when I preferred him with many other members and structures of the NC as the Deputy President to Comrade President Zuma. Upon Comrade Motlanthe declining the Deputy President position, I was personally amongst many ANC members who then opted to bring the current President, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, to be the Deputy President against former Treasurer General of the African National Congress, who, by the way, left us at that conference, and we had to be saved by many other people who are accused of being corrupt and have captured the state, and those were the people who saved us from the Mangaung conference, and the conference ran smoothly, and President Zuma and Deputy President then, Ramaphosa, were elected. I did this all as a loyal member of the ANC, understanding the duties of a member, including the Constitution. On my personal attack and vilification, Chair, I take serious exception, find it insensitive for Mr. Agrizzi to claim that they paid the cost for the burial of my son and my family. He even confuses the names, even my own sons, as to who has passed on and who has had a drug problem, precisely because he has other ulterior motives of which I do not know. My family, like many others, including yourselves and many others, both black and white, do receive condolences during bereavements. But we all know, Chair, that to claim that BOSASA buried my son and family is so hurting, derogatory, and insensitive of Mr. Agrizzi. In any of my bereavements, we uphold our pride and cultural practices. And one of those is that we bury our own. We take responsibility of what are the burial costs. We take full responsibility in line with our customs and traditions. I'm married to Basotho, proudly Basotho, who are Bakwena, who have their own culture. I'm born Mkhize, we have our own culture at home, and we have our own rituals that we prefer. And therefore, we can't go and have a stranger burying our own because we don't want to be followed up by other things that we have to sort out post the burial. I think the chair understands better what I'm saying. Where people, and we know that where people come, Chairperson, and make contributions, It will be as it is done in other families, including in other religions. Some people offer condolences in different forms, some not even known by the immediate family. And in the instances that Mr. Agrizzi is referring to, I have been the chief mourner. And in our own tradition, in our culture, I am confined to the bedroom with the mattress pulled down and myself just interacting with the only people that I can tell you, Chair, who I have never been their supporter, but they have become my own family, is Orlando Pirates. The Orlando Pirates choir will forever, during my bereavements, come, and yet they know I'm an ardent supporter of Kaizer Chiefs. Even when Bobby Mutaung said this is their family business, I am still a fan of Kaizer Chiefs, but my home is with Orlando Pirates because Sis Mantwa, Bra Ivan Koza, I see them as my own brothers. I call him Krotman, I call Sis Mantwa Aus Mantwa, precisely because of my marriage to Basotho. Out of all this, I so wish, Chair, that even one day, when death has struck on Mr. Agrizzi's family, no one must use his pain to try and discredit or seek to destroy him. It is un-African, it's inhumane, it lacks ubuntu. Because makshoniwe, people do come, balethi amakandlela, balethi izandla, balethe okusizwayo, and some of the things that he's referring to are things that I really think they actually bother on undermining and trying to destroy the little of my character that I have built. With regard to the food donated by BOSASA, just as it is happening now, Chair, just now, under lockdown, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses and individuals who go all out to share with communities. But BOSASA was no exception, and it continues to be no exception. I'm still involved in charity work, not even being in parliament, not being a public representative. As we speak now, kids in Kagiso 1 will be fed through the initiatives and the support that business has extended to make sure that those who normally depend on the food that they find they get served at school are now actually given something to live and survive now that they have not gone back to school. And also, Chair, I can also indicate that not only has BOSASA worked or supported the community of Kagiso, it has gone as far as Orange Farm. It has done a lot of work in Limpopo, in the rural areas. It was worked in Port Elizabeth. And here, they found me as one of the public representatives, one of the activists of Kagiso, a child of Kagiso, a child of Manseville, that we should work together and make sure that when they donate these things, we are there. And they have served, and they've done those things. They've even given an opportunity to people who would not have had a Christmas celebration, a chance to have a Merry Christmas. There was a moment when parents and communities, Chair, in Gauteng, and I think all of us will remember because it was out in the media, when all of us were overwhelmed and desperate because of the drug abuse in this province. Outside of my responsibility as a public representative, but as an affected parent, Chair, together with community leaders, parents, and I want to state it, Orlando Pirates, which I don't even support even today, came forward, worked on a program that went out to assist kids. We picked up kids lying in Vilekazi Street. We picked up kids in Diepkloof. We picked up kids in Kagiso. And because of this social mobilization, we had a crisis in El Dorado Park that everybody knows, where I met many of the anti-drug activists. We worked together, and all these people came forward. And in this partnership, it was not only BOSASA, there were other institutions that also came to partner with the communities. And in this instance, BOSASA again offered to lend a hand in assisting to fight this scourge of substance abuse. They offered services voluntarily, not to my child only, not to me, but to the communities that had come forward. And young people who were willing to be assisted volunteered themselves and admitted themselves into the services of of BOSASA. And it then went beyond Gauteng. It even went to the Western Cape. It went to Limpopo. It went to the northwest as well. On security matters, Chair. Chairperson, my life and that of my family has been always under threat from as far back as in the 80s. We have survived bombings. We have survived kidnappings. We have survived torture. We have survived shootings. We have survived poisoning. Not one, but many a times. Even when I was 11 days married and 2 months pregnant, we thought we were going into a special honeymoon, only to find that we were going into Section 29, and were then kept in isolation together with my late husband, Sech Mokonyane. At a time when I was even the Premier Chair, never mind those times in the 80s, and unfortunately even with the 80s, the Truth Commission, and I think it was amongst other venues using this kind of facility, has never come out until today. Nobody, including a district surgeon who colluded with the security branch to say, I'm not pregnant, trying to abort me forcefully, never came forward to apologize. Even today, nobody has come out to say who bombed our homes more than once. Nobody has come forward to say who actually wanted to jump the fence and the gate in Bapong Street, where I used to live in 1085, and that out of the security advice of the NC, we had to move away from that area because there was illegal electricity connection, and our house sometimes got dark because of illegal connection, only to find that there was also a plan to keep our house dark. We had to move to Silverfields, not to Kenme, as Mr. Agrizzi and his witnesses refer. I've never lived in Kenme. I've lived in Kagiso. I got married, I lived in Manseville. I moved to Kagiso. I then lived with my family in Silverfields, and then we are now in Noordeville. Again, a demonstration that they don't know me. They seem to be fudging and trying to find everything to just deal with the little of the character that I have built for myself. At a time when I was the Premier Chair, I was faced with a housebreaking whilst I was asleep inside the official residence in Bribes. That residence had cameras on. That residence had static South African Police Services officers on duty. And strangely, on that day, they alleged that they knocked off at 2 in the morning. People got into the house. They took all the electronic appliances. Fortunately, I locked the door when I'm asleep, and they left with no one having found them. To date, nobody, including members of the SAPS who were on duty that time, for static duty, have ever faced any hearing, just a simple hearing, or a disciplinary case. Nothing has happened. But let's leave that, Chair. Now, when I was the minister, I was sent to go and work in the Eastern Cape. In Umtata, there was a break-in into my room, and only to find that that hotel only had its cameras at the reception and in the kitchen, and people broke into my room. They took all the electronic gadgets whilst I was asleep. They took my handbag and all other valuables. To date, nobody has been prosecuted. A case was opened. Until today, nobody has actually come back to me and say, we have closed this case because we have no evidence whatsoever. But now recently, with the killing of George Floyd, I live in Noordeville, Chair. And living in Noordeville, I don't live in the upper Noordeville. I live amongst the working class in that area, just as in Silverfields. I live in a standalone house. I am subscribed to a security company. And when there was this issue of George Floyd and about Black Lives Matter, one of the other people who reside in Noordeville, a white person, actually went onto the chat group and was making a mockery of George Floyd. I responded. My daughter, who lives with me, also responded to say, but this is so wrong. This is a security chat group. You can't do these things. And they were all laughing. They were all making a mockery. And I was the first who responded. But guess what happened, Chair? This man, a white man who I don't know, decided to go for my daughter Katleo, telling her, I know you, I know where you live, I know you and your mother are staying alone, I will get you. I can come even now. And I'm saying this now during this period of the lockdown. And all these things were reported to the police. And precisely because of that, I can say, all those who want to deal with Nomvula find it difficult to confront me directly, but opt to go directly to those that they know they matter most in my life, my children. Any parent who gets attacked through his or her kids actually feels the severest pain compared to being directly attacked. Now, Chair, when I was in Silverfields, one of the things that happened was that one of the days we find our dog actually poisoned. Even then, no work was done. The SPCA took the dog and all those things. We don't know what has happened. Not once, Chair, but many a times, even during the apartheid days. I've never refused or failed to cooperate whenever there is an investigation against me. Even now, when the commission arrived at home, I stayed away from them, also due to my own health conditions, but also because of the respect for the rule of law, and allowed the team to work. And in that inspection, still, they continued to look for whatever that they were looking for, which unfortunately, the very witnesses that have made me to come here today are still fudging issues and confusing matters. But thanks to Mr. Nixon, who actually confirms that some of the things that are said here do not actually stand ground. I find it very concerning, Chair, that having been at pains to cooperate, a lot of sensation is created about my house, about my family, and what is found in my house, even with lots of inaccuracies, including a simple inaccuracy to say there are wooden stairs in my house. There are no wooden stairs. His assertion of describing my house inside, before you get to the kitchen, you pass a private lounge, which has got a door on the right-hand side, and you have a dining room that has always been in use. But of course, it is Mr. Agrizzi's, excuse me, Chair. It is Mr. Agrizzi's intention to really rub in a perception that has been fed over time about the kind of person that they want to project to society against the person that I am. He claims to have been there when I was given cash, and I am contesting him, I'm challenging him. They also agree with his witnesses that there were instances that when they came to the house and they met there at the house in my absence, knowing very well, Chair, that I'm actually a busy woman, and hence I was also given the name Mama Action. I'm always on the road for church reasons, for community issues, for my own family things, even traveling as far as Lesotho, because of the love I have for the people, not only that are of my immediate relatives, but also the people of South Africa. We made a choice, myself and my husband, Chair, that post-1994, he remained in the council, but later we reflected and said only one of us must stay in politics and the other one must opt out. He took care of the family, including most of the matters that have to do with the upkeeping of the home, as well as our safety when I moved to National Cabinet. Throughout my term in Gauteng, security matters were a responsibility of the state. Even when the Sunday Times peddled the news before the commission said, my husband actually reported through an SMS to say, this is hogwash, this is rubbish. He is responsible. He knows what is happening. There are people that he pays for maintenance and all those things. I think it also undermines the men. Ayikho indoda yakhelwa omunye indoda umuzi, except with the RDPs. Ayikho indoda enakekelwa ikhaya layo ngabanye amadoda. Unless Mr. Agrizzi doesn't know. My husband is a proud, very selfless, who has tried everything, Chair, even under these conditions, to build his own profile, including venturing into spaces that doors were shut. Even though I was the minister, I was the MEC, he's tried to get into the business of scrap, getting scrap with Eskom, and because of the evergreen projects in Eskom, until today, my husband was fighting that case where his preference, including the application of the 30% quota, was ignored because there are evergreen projects in Eskom, and the issue of scrap was left for those that are better known within Eskom. But he pursued, he tried, he did everything, and today I'm proud to say he took care of us. He would even find people that he could relate with who can actually come and support him and guide him on how to become a businessman, compared to him having been, anyway, a secret intelligence operator of the African National Congress, including a member of Umkhonto weSizwe, a trade unionist, and an activist of the community of Kagiso, Mansfield in South Africa. I find Mr. Agrizzi's assertions, Chair, very disrespectful, insensitive, and undermining, maybe reflecting on his chauvinistic and the self-confessed racist character of the person of Mr. Agrizzi. In my serving the ANC, being the member of, I've seen various business organizations voluntarily coming forward to support ANC leaders and programs, including sponsoring campaigns and parties of leaders of the ANC. This has not only happened during Comrade President Zuma's terms, but with all leaders starting with Comrade President Mandela up to now. I'm not sure if Mr. Agrizzi says it was because of other ulterior motives that we were working and BOSASA was supporting and working with us in the African National Congress. What would he say of the taxi industry? To date, the taxi industry is not subsidized by the state, but the taxi industry has worked with us in the ANC, using their cars as mobile billboards, ferrying voters, ferrying supporters of the ANC to rallies. A state-owned entity, national chairperson, I beg your pardon, chairperson, a state-owned entity, Telkom, was one of those who sponsored our national conference, and many other businesses that are included here. And this has been something that has been done not only for the ANC, not only for me, not only for members of the ANC, but this has been part of the democratic operations here in this country, where businesses had chosen to support those that they prefer would pursue their interests and would also help to reconstruct this country. The support I was appointed MEC for Agriculture, Conservation and Environment in Gauteng was to now have Maruping being a World Heritage Site. I moved to safety. I'm sorry, I will say something. One of the things that we did was to activate communities. And one of the key campaigns that we mobilized communities, business against crime, everybody on, was a campaign against wanted criminals and dealing with those that were harassing women and children in the streets and reclaiming the streets. One of those projects was Operation Wanyatsotsi, pardon my language. But it was a demonstration of the extent of which communities were angry against crime. The second one, Chair, as we speak, here in Braamfontein, is Ikaya Letemb, where, working together with Telkom, they donated a building for victims of gender-based violence. I moved to housing. When I came in housing, there were only 8 companies, white, well-established, Stocks and Stocks, that is now Stefanuti, and your other big companies. They were the only 8. That is how I have worked. So having BOSASA here in office, showing off that he's working with the African National Congress here in Gauteng, and that has never been an issue. Nobody has ever frowned upon. And we all know, as abazali, that our children must also find space to express themselves without the influence of abazali. I wish and pray, Chair, that Mr. Agrizzi, out of his own conscience, can refrain from using this commission in a manner that shows a sense of desperation and destruction of people's characters for motives better known by him. Thirdly, Chair, dead man tells no story. Maybe this commission is deprived of hearing, not only from the late Mr. Gavin Watson, but also from my late son, Ritlabusa, who went to his grave, having not been a person who's addicted to drugs. And yet, Agrizzi refers to him, showing how he doesn't even know my kids. And as we speak now, my child who has a drug problem is trying by all means to survive. But they get chastised, they get humiliated, they get mocked, and they get actually hurt every time and again by what is happening about their own parents. And here, I can see Mr. Agrizzi now, his new project with all those that are his handlers is on my daughter Katleo. It can't be correct. It can't be allowed. It hurts. I so wish that Serge, Gavin, and Ritlabusa would have been alive so that they can also come and tell their side of the story, because he claims he knows him. Yes, my husband is a golfer, but my husband doesn't have a relationship with Agrizzi, nor is my husband a racist. And the very fact that we've been born, lived, and bringing our families in Krugersdorp, it's one of the verkrampte places. 2 kilometers away from my place, you've got that monument where Ter Blanche used to go. I live with those communities. I have high respect for them. I do respect them. And I appreciate that if they hate you, they hate you. If they don't want any relationship with you, they don't have a relationship. But if they make friends, they are the best of buddies. So I really think that he himself does not actually take also respect for individuals, both the dead and the living. I'm here, Chair, in conclusion, to respond to his continuous contradictions, the affidavits which I also think reflect an abuse of this commission for motives better known to him. The following are just my concerns: that my house has been put up for public knowledge and access, that race has been mentioned more than once here, and there has also been those Google maps that he has taken and has presented here before the House. For the record, Chair, I want to tell you, as we speak today, in that house, I only live with 2 other women, myself, my daughter, and my little grandchild, Latita. Rather than me investing on the future of my grandchildren, I have to invest on my security. I have to invest on my safety. I have to invest on paying legal support, because I don't know what the intentions are. But I'm here, Chair, because I believe that Mr. Agrizzi must be proven to be the character that I've characterized here today. With crime being on the rise, with all the issues that are happening, I've said it, I have to invest on security. I have to take care of myself, because I think there's deep hatred from the men and those that have actually advised him to go this route. I'm also concerned, Chair, about what is happening in the country on crimes against women and children, not only violent or physical abuse, but also misogyny. I think Mr. Agrizzi hates women. He chose to pick myself and Tutumieni for what reason, I don't know. I've never worked in correctional services. I've never worked in the Department of Justice. I've never acted for any minister. He gives me the credit that engenayo. He claims that I have influence on Comrade President Zuma. Chairperson, for the record, President Zuma signed a proclamation to investigate a department under my leadership without having even said anything to me, but it came out and there was investigation. Even then, you can go and ask the law enforcement agencies. I've cooperated to an extent where I had to frog march officials who were refusing to cooperate with the SIU and everybody to come and cooperate, because I do believe that where there's transgression, there must be accountability. I'm not sure why in all these supplementary affidavits, Mr. Agrizzi fails to confirm that through BOSASA, his own son, Giancarlo, rendered services to the ANC in Gauteng province and doing research. He took selfies, he posted, and they, even when they were doing all this thing, he would always put the ANC there. As to whether it was to protect BOSASA, I do not know. But I do want to say to yourself, to your good self, Chair, I am here because I have to put my own side of the story. And all these things that Agrizzi is saying about me, only him and his handlers, I don't think even his God allows him to do this. And hence, even last night, Chair, we went to bed early hours of today, working on all these documents that are similar to this, because I want to come, set the record straight, go out and continue with the life of looking after my own children now as a widow, make attempts to ensure that there's food on the table, serve the people of South Africa still, build this very ANC as we are doing even under lockdown, and make sure that there's peace and friendship in our country. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mokonyane. I just want to mention, you did mention that you wished, among others, that Mr. Gavin Watson was around to be able to put his side of the story. I've mentioned previously that before he passed on, the commission had already been in touch with his lawyers in order to make arrangements to get an affidavit from him so that he could put his side of the story. But unfortunately, he passed on before we could get that. So I just thought I would mention that. But I'm grateful you are here, and you have already made certain points about your side of the story. I think we'll take the tea adjournment so that when we come back, then we can continue. Okay, we'll take the tea adjournment. The time is 11:25. We will resume at 22:12. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair. issues of state capture, they come in many ways of capturing the state by trying to influence the people who have got influence in the state. You understand that? Yeah. Now, I see, for instance, you mentioned in your certain gifts that are made to the ANC support, but with no strings attached. You mentioned things like that. And I suppose the strings attached, you refer to the exact issue that is involved in this commission, the state capture.
Yes,
String attached being trying to capture the state.
yeah. Strings attached in terms of what Agrizzi says about my role in all that.
Okay. Now, right,
Ms. Mokonyane, although he will be asking the questions most of the time, but when you answer, please look this side, yeah, so I can, I can hear you and I can understand what you say properly.
now,
Yes,
let's
are you comfortable? Are you okay?
I am comfortable, it's just cold here, but I'm here.
Oh, yeah, this venue is very cold. Last week I had to say they must switch off even the aircon because it seemed better without what they call the heater.
But we can proceed, Chair.
Well, as we continue, is it not better if we switch off? They indicate that it's better that it's on. But
Yeah, let's soldier on, Chair.
yeah, let's soldier on, but just mention if it becomes too much or unbearable.
will.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Ma'am, can we go to folder divider 4 to your statement?
Yes.
On page 19, you give details about yourself, your name, where you stay.
Well, Mr. Noshe, don't you want to have that, her affidavit admitted as an exhibit first?
Thank you, Chair. Before that, can you then turn, Ms. Mokonyane, on the same page, on page 10 to page 40.
Yeah.
Now, you confirm there's an affidavit there above the name Nomvula. Sorry, there's a signature above the name Nomvula Mokonyane. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
And you confirm that this document we're looking at, together with annexures up to NPM 6, is your affidavit?
NPM?
And 6 on page 60.
Well, maybe let us say this, Ms. Mokonyane, the document that starts at page 19
Yes.
and goes up to page 40,
Yes.
is that your affidavit?
Yes, it is, Chair.
And do you confirm that the contents of that document are, to the best of your knowledge and belief, true and correct?
Yes, it is, Chair.
And it's got annexures, does it? I'm just going to have a look. Does it have annexures? Yeah, it has annexures.
Yes, it is, Chair.
Yeah, those are annexures to your affidavit.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, then this document is, can it be admitted then as Exhibit T20, starting on, as Chair has indicated, page 19, and ending at page 62, that is the content and the annexures.
Do you propose that it be Exhibit T20 only, or T20A, or T20.1, or?
Chair, with your leave, can we, because they have got the dividers 1, 2, 3, but if you use the alphabet, then it should be D, should be 20D, T20D.
What will be 20A?
20A will be the letter that served the 3 3s on Mrs. Mokonyane, and then B
Yeah,
being
but
the notice.
But that's just a letter that is not going to have any evidential value, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it's got to, there's no need for it to be admitted as an exhibit.
As you then please, Chair, then we can move. Chair, the only issue with where I need your guidance then is 20, on divider 1, the letter contains the notice in terms of Rule 33, and in the notice is accompanied by the affidavit of Agrizzi, which will be part of the evidence.
Yes, but it shouldn't have, the notice shouldn't have been there.
I suppose they had put the notice there because it contained the affidavit. What was intended to be there is the affidavit of Mr. Agrizzi, the main affidavit. Chair, what we can do,
Because you won't be referring to the notices, isn't it?
No, I won't be.
Yes. Well, the first affidavit you have got in the bundle is that of Mr. Agrizzi,
Yes,
which would have been admitted and as a certain exhibit when he gave evidence.
oh yes.
Preferably, we should keep that exhibit number
In the evidence that he
in
gave.
regard to his one,
That's
first
fine.
one,
That's
because
fine,
that
Chair.
one would have been, the supplementary affidavit, his supplementary affidavit would also have been given an exhibit number at the time he gave evidence.
Understand.
It's only his response to Ms. Mokonyane's affidavit that would not have been given an exhibit number
Yes.
as yet, because he didn't testify after deposing to that affidavit. And Ms. Mokonyane's affidavit it certainly needs to be admitted. But now you might not be ready to say what the exhibit number was of Mr. Agrizzi's affidavit.
Yes.
And it may be that for the sake of convenience, the extracts from his affidavit, because not the whole affidavit.
Yes.
The extracts that are here could be given a new exhibit number.
Yes.
And then that would make things easier. So we could start with Mr. Agrizzi's one and make it exhibit T20, A or point 1, and then when we reach Ms. Mokonyane's one, that might be T20.2 or B, and so on and so on. Do you prefer it that way?
I prefer it that way, Chair. So, Chair, with your leave then.
Okay, so Mr. Agrizzi's affidavit appearing at page 7 will be admitted. The extracts from his affidavit will be admitted and marked as exhibit T20A. Okay, and then we will skip the notices, and then we'll go to Ms. Mokonyane's affidavit or statement, and it's a statement, it's not an affidavit. At least that's how it looks like at the beginning of the statement. I'm not sure at the end.
It's an affidavit.
It is an affidavit.
Yes.
Yeah. Her affidavit is admitted and marked as exhibit T20B, that is together with its annexures.
Yes.
And then as you refer to others, then we will add. Okay.
Yes.
So, Ms. Mokonyane, when he refers to exhibit T20B, that's your affidavit, but he will also say your affidavit. Okay. And when we refer to exhibit T20A, that will be the extracts from Mr. Agrizzi's affidavit at the beginning, and then others will be marked as we go along. Okay, Mr. Noche?
But, Mrs. Mokonyane, if you get lost, please indicate, and then we'll also use the red numbers
Yeah.
to guide you through. Now, we're at page 19, the introduction to your affidavit, where you merely describe your name and your address, and also there, Ms. Mokonyane, what we have done through the directions of the chairperson is to withhold from evidence, from mentioning your address, also for security purposes. Throughout, we have tried to stay away from mentioning your address, so we won't read it into the record.
Thank you.
And then paragraph 2, you deal with the various public offices positions you have held.
Yes.
And on page 20, paragraph 3, you deal with the positions you have held in the ANC. And paragraph 4, you have dealt with, Chair, I'm merely going through this because it's just merely a background.
Well, I think you should go straight to the issues unless Ms. Mokonyane has anything on these pages that she particularly wants to mention. Nothing?
No,
Oh,
nothing. Chair.
yes, okay. So I think you should just go straight to the real issues.
Mrs. Mokonyane, where I really want you to start is on page 23, paragraph 14, where you refer on paragraph 14, there where you said the narrative you're dealing with the publication in the Sunday Times. I'm reading in the middle of the second sentence of that paragraph.
Why do you want to deal with that?
Chair, I just want to discuss, Mrs. Mokonyane, to explain to the Commission the issue of the Integrity Commission of the ANC.
Yes, but,
The point,
but why is that particularly part of the issues?
the point I wanted to find out, and perhaps Mrs. Mokonyane will assist the Commission, that the Integrity Commission also is guarding against members of the ANC, members who are in government, to be unduly influenced, to be guard against
I
capture.
think start with the issues that Mr. Agrizzi raised. Let's start with that. If we end up dealing with Integrity Commission, we can see how important it is, but I think let's go to the real issues for the day.
That's fine, Chair.
If at any stage there is something that you haven't covered that Ms. Mokonyane or his lawyers feel is important, they will mention.
Thank you, Chair. Then, Mrs. Mokonyane, turn to page 27 of the band, which is your affidavit, paragraph 24, where you start to deal with the allegations made by Mr. Agrizzi. Paragraph 24 is, and if you can put your hand on page 27,
Yes.
and then turn to Mr. Agrizzi's affidavit.
There are
Which
two
does-
I'm sorry, Mr. Machet, there are two ways of dealing with this. One way is for you to tell Ms. Mokonyane which allegation by Mr. Agrizzi you are dealing with, and she can deal with it, because some of these matters she might be able to deal without having to go and look at a particular page. But obviously, if she wishes to have a look, she can have a look. So one way is for you to say, Mr. Agrizzi says the following, and then let her deal with that. Okay. Another way is the way you are dealing with it. But I leave it to you which one you want to to adopt.
Chair, I think then the easier and quicker way is for me to let Ms. Mokonyane stick to her affidavit, and then I'll read, and if necessary, you can go and refer back to Agrizzi. So go back to your affidavit on page 27.
Yes, I am, Chair.
And then what I will do then, Ms. Mokonyane, I will read what Mr. Agrizzi is saying, and then you can respond on what you have responded. Turn to page 28, where you deal with paragraph 22.2 of Mr. Agrizzi. At 22.2, Mr. Agrizzi says this. He says, during 2002/2003, she was the MEC for Safety and Security Gauteng. As far as I can remember, I met her at the BOSASA office while she was there on a social visit. Now you deal with that on page 28 of your affidavit. So the contents of this affidavit are admitted insofar as they relate to my status at the time that are denied in relation to me having met Agrizzi at that stage at the BOSASA office on a social visit. Now, Mr. Agrizzi replies, he replies to this on your paragraph 26. He replies to it and this is on page 70, page 70.
Of his statement.
Page 70 of the red number.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Agrizzi says this. Says, I am reading his affidavit. He says, I deny the contents of this paragraph. That is your paragraph. And Mrs. Nomvula Mokonyane denied that she had met me on a social visit at BOSASA Office Park. I had met Mrs. Nomvula Mokonyane on both social and business meetings. I even coordinated Nomvula Mokonyane's 50th birthday party celebrations, which was funded by BOSASA. The theme of a birthday party was break a leg or words to that effect. It was held at Victorian Guest House situated at A1 Tom Muller Street, West Village, Krugersdorp. I was personally present as a guest at the birthday party to coordinate the party.
Chairperson, if I may respond on that. This is again an assertion on what I have said about Mr. Agrizzi. My 50th birthday was held at the casino, Silver Star, in Krugersdorp, and not where Mr. Agrizzi is referring to. I turned 50 in 2013.
1 second, Ms. Mokonyane. I don't know whether it's the aircon, but you are not as audible as you were earlier on.
Is it better now?
It is better, yeah. Yes. Okay, just start again.
Chairperson, once more, this is a false assertion. I turned 50 in 2013. My 50th birthday was hosted at Silver Star Casino in Krugersdorp.
Is there a party?
I'm sorry, what venue did Mr. Agrizzi give?
He says Victoria Guest House, situated at A1 Tom Muller Street, West Village, Krugersdorp. Now, Mrs. Mokonyane, just tell the chairperson.
1 second before you go, that's not the venue where your birthday party was held.
No.
Yes.
The venue was at Silver Star, and it's a known place. It's on the road on N14.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
But is there a party that was ever held at Victorian Guest House?
There's been many parties at that place.
I mean, your party?
No.
You've never had a party
No.
there? And you've never had a party called Break a Leg?
I've had a birthday party at Silver Star.
A Break a Leg?
No.
Well, he says the theme of your 50th birthday party was break a leg. You say that's not true.
No,
Yes. Well, did your 50th birthday party have a theme? Even if it's not
the
this
call
theme?
was to people to come and celebrate the
Yes.
journey of my life.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mokonyane, just to be in fairness to you, I mean, you didn't respond to this in an affidavit. But what we do, what the commission do as they're entitled to do, is it can follow up the response you give. So I just want for you to confirm that you say there was no 50th birthday at Victoria Guest House, and you say there was never your birthday at Victoria Guest House. Is that
No.
your evidence?
There has been other parties, but not my birthday.
At that place?
No,
And you also want to confirm that at that place, at Victoria Guest House, there was never your birthday paid for by BOSASA?
no, there was never a birthday paid by BOSASA.
And also there was no birthday called break a leg?
No, not
Ed.
to my knowledge. Not my birthday, not Nomvula's birthday, not Nomvula's 50th birthday.
Now, then I'm continuing with Mr. Agrizzi's statement. Paragraph 23.2, he says,
Well, maybe let's expand on this. Mr. Agrizzi says that he had attended meetings where he was present and you were present, which were business meetings as well as social visits. So do you say that is not true at all, or do you say some meetings yes, but not others, or do you say you never attended a meeting which was attended by Mr. Agrizzi, whether it was a business meeting or a social meeting?
I've never been in a meeting with Mr. Agrizzi,
Yes.
and he's also not a personal friend or anybody who I can have a social interaction with him. So if I will come across him in BOSASA, and that is it.
Yes. He says that there were meetings where he was accompanying Mr. Gavin Watson, and you were there. You say no, there were
He
no
will
such
accompany
meetings.
Mr. Gavin Watson, but I've never sat with Mr. Agrizzi in a
You have never been in a meeting with the
No.
two of them at the same
No.
time? Yes, okay.
sorry, Ms. Mokonyane, the chair has just touched on the paragraph I was about to read, where Mr. Agrizzi says, he met you on a number of occasions at the BOSASA office park, where you normally used to visit to arrive after 17 hours, where you attended on meetings with the late Gavin Watson, and he was personally present. Now, in this, are you saying you never, or are you saying you did attend offices, meetings at the BOSASA office park, but Agrizzi was not there?
I've never attended a meeting with Agrizzi in BOSASA office park. I've met other people who work at BOSASA because of the ANC's operations in BOSASA.
But you confirmed that you did attend meetings at BOSASA office park?
Yes, I have.
Now, he
And,
says in paragraph...
Sorry, would one of the people that you would meet at BOSASA office park be Mr. Gavin Watson?
Yes, it will be Gavin, and then he would then hand over the people who will be running a call center and those that will be assisting the ANC in its programs.
Yes, okay.
Now, paragraph 23.3, it says, some of the meetings held where I was present related specifically to the criminal prosecution that was being considered against BOSASA and its directors and the SIU report.
I deny that. I have nothing to do with the SIU nor any authority.
And then he says, in paragraph 23.4, Nomvula Mokonyane did further attend at the office park on social occasions as well where I was present. This includes the official Lekhotlas and ANC events, BOSASA funded all celebrations, food refreshments, including hiring and ancillary costs.
This was for the ANC, and it was not a social thing, it was a political program of the ANC, which I am a member of.
And is it correct, ANC, BOSASA funded the celebrations, the food, the refreshments, including hiring and ancillary costs?
Yes, BOSASA did fund some of the programs, was a sponsor, like I've indicated, that there's been many other sponsors, such as BOSASA, Telkom, and many others who would come in and sponsor ANC events.
Now, we go back to page 28 of your affidavit. Now, this is on paragraph 27, you are responding to paragraph 22.3 of Mr. Agrizzi. I will then, let me read Mr. Agrizzi's affidavit, paragraph 22.3, that is the main affidavit. Okay. Now, it says, subsequent thereto, towards the end of every year, I was tasked by Gavin Watson to see to her family's Christmas needs. These would include, then approximately, 22.31, 120 cases of cold drinks, 22.3.2, 4 cases of high-quality whiskey, 40 cases mixed beer, 8 lambs, 12 cases of frozen chicken pieces, 200 kg beef, and then in brackets as well as various bribe packs, and 22.37, numerous cases of premier brandy and specialty alcohol. Now you respond to this in paragraph 27 on page 28.
Maybe you just let her respond without going to her affidavit, because some of these things, I think she knows the answer. But if she wants to be referred to the relevant part of her affidavit, she can be referred. Ms. Mokonyane, if you feel free to just respond, just do that. But if you need to have a look at your affidavit, that would be fine.
No, thank you, Chair. Just to respond on this.
Yes.
I don't have the capacity to store these volumes that Mr. Agrizzi is referring to. I've never benefited or received any goods to the benefit of my family. I have been employed, and those who know me, post December 16, my family closes off. We go on holiday, we take a break. We only come back on the 30th of December to be with my family and all my in-laws and everybody in Kagiso, in my own parents' home. So this is not true.
Now, Mr. Watson, I'm sorry, Mr. Agrizzi responds to your affidavit. His response is on page 72. He responds to a number of these, and paragraph 24 of his affidavit, he says, I admit that Nomvula Mokonyane was gainfully employed as a public office bearer and that her late husband was a businessman. 24.2, save for the above, I deny the contents of this paragraph. That is your paragraph. I repeat that the late Gavin Watson always made a point of looking after Nomvula Mokonyane and her family's Christmas needs, and that inter alia, the items I mentioned were in fact not only delivered but received by Nomvula Mokonyane and her family. On most occasions, the items were delivered to her address at Blowback Street at North Hevel. The house is situated in a cul-de-sac. Now just here, Mrs. Mokonyane, firstly, he says you received these personally. They were received by you and your family.
Chairperson, I've never received anything as Mr. Agrizzi is stating, and as it is reflected on my affidavit, this has not happened. We all know that a house like this one cannot have a storage to keep all these items. Even those that came on site, I'm sure they didn't find any strong room or a fridge or a whatever freezer that could keep this. Nor do I have a place where I could keep many of these kind of items. I know what BOSASA has done for the communities of the West Rand and for the events over the festive season prior to them closing down, supporting and going an extra mile to do their CSI in support of these communities, not for my personal benefit.
He says that these items were delivered at an address at Blowback Street, and he says, most importantly, he says the house is at a cul-de-sac. Is that correct?
Yes, it's common knowledge that the house is in a cul-de-sac. I've had bereavement there, people have come. Agrizzi had Googled the map of the house, and it is at the cul-de-sac. It has never moved away from there.
Now, further in his affidavit on the same page 72, he admits that BOSASA is involved in the CSI projects, but he persists that you did receive the items you have mentioned. And then over the page, on page 73, paragraph 27, he then importantly mentions this. He says, he deals with your paragraph 30. But if you go back to paragraph 30 of your affidavit, you say, paragraph 30, you say, I'm not privy where these groceries were sourced from, if any, but no documentary proof has been provided as to the nature and type of products were purchased and delivered by Agrizzi. Then he responds, he says, the meat was purchased from Zimani's Foods, Green Hills Butchery, Randfontein, and says the liquor and cold drinks was purchased from Swanee's in Krugersdorp. The other items were sourced from BOSASA kitchens. Do you know this Zimani's Food, the Greenfields Butchery?
I've never come across all of them. I know the places where I purchase my own meat, where I purchase my own liquor, and where I do my groceries.
And Swanee's...
Well, Mr. Rocha, you asked Ms. Mokonyane whether he knows these places. I don't think that Mr. Agrizzi was suggesting that she knows those places where those things where he says they were purchased.
No, I understand, Chair.
Yes.
I wanted to confirm from to her knowledge, whether these places do exist, but she says she doesn't know.
Well, I think the point is he gives certain particulars to what he says, and he says where these items were purchased. You might have nothing to say other than you never received any such items.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
I've never received, nor do I know these companies.
Is there a possibility that some of these items may have been purchased by BOSASA, not for you personally or for your family, but to be given to the community through you?
What I'm refuting is that they did all this purchase for me personally and for my family. Where they bought them, I don't know. What I know, they provided for those that are deserving, and that was actually distributed. People were even hosted with meals. They would have 3 meals a day, and they would go home with their Christmas hampers out of those activities.
Is it possible that you may have asked BOSASA, or they may have approached you to respond to community needs and purchase these for purposes of you or whoever you work with in the community to pass on to communities and not for you and your family personally? Is there a possibility that that is what might have happened?
BOSASA always invited us in their activities, amongst others because one is in that community as a child of that community, not just as a public representative. they've also not only did this kind of things for the community of Kagiso or in the West Rand, but across. They've also gone to an extent of even supporting schools with the school nutrition programs. So it may be possible that he's referring to where BOSASA used to purchase. Where they came from, I don't know.
Okay.
And in that, just a follow-up to what the chair is raising, were there any occasions that the food that was meant or items that were meant for the CSI projects were delivered at your house?
Chairperson, there was one instance where they brought things because the Kagiso Old Community Hall was under reconstruction, and then the food was collected, everything, and the women in Kagiso, as they normally did, including veterans, older women, they had their own big pots and own stoves. They come, they go and cook, and then the following day, everybody actually has a feast. That is the only time. And that was the time when the Kagiso Community Hall, the Kagiso Hall, next to the old police station, and that's when we moved to what is known as Kagisano Community Hall in Luisham, and also we've had many other activities in Mohale Community Hall, and now at the Heritage Center.
But you're saying these were not at your house, this cooking and delivery of the goods?
No, the cooking and everything. Kagiso, the old Kagiso Hall used to have a kitchen, used to have facilities, used to have everything that would be utilized there. And these other ones, they would then come in and do the cooking, do the preparations, and other sponsors will bring blankets, others will actually bring other goodies, food hampers and health products right at the site of the activities that were taking place. Yes.
I see. Now, then you go on and paragraph on page 29, you respond to Mr. Agrizzi's paragraph 22.5. Let me read paragraph 22.5. It reads as follows. Soon after 2002, I was tasked by Gavin Watson to supply her and her family or friends with provisions during the course of the year. I was instructed to contact her personal assistant, Sandy Thomas. Now, your response is on page 29. What is your response actually to this?
Sandy is my personal assistant, which she is still even now. And she assisted me in arranging meetings to some extent, but she would also be requested by my own late husband to do some of the things in the absence where they could not actually get hold of me. I know, Chairperson, that BOSASA also assisted communities, veterans, military combatants, destitute families with the burials so that people do not have paupers' funerals. But insofar as I have stated in my opening statement, I've buried my family. We are a family that might not be wealthy, but we take pride of burying our own, but we also appreciate whatever contributions that are made, and many of them are not even known to me personally and to some of my own family members.
Now, and then Mr. Agrizzi then responds to your answer on page 73. He says this: I deny the allegations in relation to Nomvula Mokonyane and or her family not being unduly benefited by BOSASA. And I state further that she did in fact receive gratifications. I further deny the allegations that BOSASA never paid for the funerals of any of her family relatives, family members. Then over the page, on page 74, I state more specifically that I signed off the documentation and expenses for the funeral expenses of Nomvula Mokonyane's late son. The funeral and the expense related thereto was coordinated by myself together with the employees of BOSASA. This entailed hiring of a marquee, tents, air conditioning, flooring, together with the printing of memorial pamphlets, together with the provision of foods and refreshments. I signed off documents for payment by BOSASA in respect of relative of Nomvula Mokonyane. You say you deny all of this.
Chairperson, as I have indicated, he says he has signed off the funeral expenses. That is not correct. We are the ones who procured the services of the funeral undertaker. We paid for the burial of my son. And as to what BOSASA had contributed, like I do not know what other people have contributed, I further deny that. I was never even approached by, by BOSASA, and I really take offense of Agrizzi continuously making us to being such an irresponsible family that cannot even afford to bury their own child, nor even my family. I know in my own circumstances that there are many people who will come and offer condolences, and in many instances, you don't even know who has done what, and not even having approached me. And I really take exception, I take offense, because he has repeatedly dragged Ritlabusa into this game when even my son is no more. He has even gone to an extent of referring to him as a drug addict. I take exception and I refuse to accept. Whatever that was a contribution, I can tell you that it is a contribution that might have been done, not on the basis of what Agrizzi is stating, just like any other person. Hence, at the end of every burial, in our own culture, surely, Chairperson, you know, there will be an elder who will come and thank everybody who has made contributions, who has helped you to take the burden off your own shoulders when you are grieving. But for people to come now and want to sensationalize what has happened to my son and want to make use of this situation, it is not correct. The marquees and all those kind of things, I have people that I know who have been always supporting us. We pay for those costs. Others are young people in Gauteng and in South Africa who are doing all this, who are involved in the entertainment industry, including my own nephew, who is involved and who used to work with those individuals.
Now, Mrs. Mokonyane, when you drafted your answering affidavit, you must have noticed, you must have read that in paragraph 22.5, Mr. Agrizzi says that he was instructed to contact your personal assistant, Sandy Thomas. Now, when you prepared your affidavit, did you ask Sandy Thomas about this? Whether he was ever contacted by Agrizzi?
Chairperson, yes, I have checked with Sandy. There was an instance, just once, where there was a storm and our alarm was continuously going on. And because of that, and I was not even home, nor was my service provider available because they were out in the field dealing with the challenges that have affected even the flooding of some of the airports and so on and so forth. That's when then Sandy got a call from my own husband to say, you know, there's a problem in the house, because he was not even at home, saying, can you check exactly what is happening and can you assist? And there was no one who could be of help. And that's when, because these people were known to be also involved in dealing with issues of security, they came and what they found was that there was a tree that fell on the fence, and that was it. Any other thing, never. Except if there are things that have to do with my availability for the programs that have to do with their CSI.
So, sorry, can you just want to clarify something. You're saying Sandy confirmed that he contacted Agrizzi about the problem with your electric fence?
He contacted BOSASA, yes.
She contacted BOSASA?
Yes, she contacted Gavin. Sorry. Okay. She contacted BOSASA, and in BOSASA she was referred to a person that she would have to talk to on that particular time, and then because of the weather conditions, she sent a text message.
But you're saying that she never contacted, or she had never had any interaction with Agrizzi?
No, not to my knowledge.
Now, sorry, just to help the chair. why did she contact BOSASA? Who told her to contact BOSASA?
She was asked by my own husband because he was trying to get hold of the security company, the electricians who were out 24/7, who were out in the field because of the storm and everything. And the only people that are in the neighborhood that he knew could actually come and assist to just come and check what is happening with the alarm that's going on and off. And that's why in send this message, the simple thing is, can you please come and check? I'm told in Mrs. Mokonyane's house, the alarm is going on and off and there is nobody around.
And is it your evidence that you didn't authorize her to call BOSASA?
No, and I can even confirm, Chairperson, that on the weekend where the Sunday Times actually issued a statement about, actually flouted the rules of this commission and publicized Agrizzi's statement, my husband immediately responded to say, this is hogwash. He is responsible for the security. He's got service providers. He knows what has happened around this matter.
Yes.
And that SMS is still there.
Yes. Now, you then on paragraph, on page 29, you deal with paragraph 22.51, where he says the assistance given by BOSASA include, I'm reading his affidavit, main affidavit, include paying and organizing funerals in respect of deceased members.
On paragraph? Sorry, Chair, on paragraph?
No, I'm dealing with your paragraph.
Oh.
Paragraph on page 29.
Yes.
On page 29, you are dealing with his page, paragraph 22.1, where he says paying off and organizing funerals. You deny that, and his response is merely also, he's also denying that you are denying. Double denial. And then, on the same page, you deal with paragraph 22.2 of his affidavit. Now, in his affidavit, paragraph 22.2, he says some of the things that was done by
I'm sorry,
BOSASA.
I think just wait for Ms. Mokoena to
Paragraph
find.
paragraph 22.2, it's on page 28.
No. Paragraph, we're at page 29 of your affidavit,
Yes.
but you are dealing with paragraph 22.2. But don't worry about going to paragraph 20, I'll read it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So that it's going to confuse if you are going to run back and forth. Then, in paragraph 22.5.2, he says, BOSASA arranged for the rental of a vehicle for periods of 3 months at a time through Blake's Travel, a premium vehicle such as Audi A3, for her daughter when she visited from China, where she was studying. Now you deal with it on page 29 of the record, paragraph 33.
Yes.
And you are saying here, this was for your daughter.
Yes, Chairperson. My daughter is a South African, and because of our own experiences of what has happened to our 2 kids, we opted to take Katlego away from this messy environment where our children were immediate targets. She studied in Rodin. She flew all by herself to China after we have opted and agreed with her to go and further her studies in China. She studied in China. She can read, write. She can even explain issues that are related to trade and commerce in both Mandarin and in English. She can even try and explain it in Zulu or in Sesotho. My daughter, even before she went to China, she used to do part-time jobs here at Silver Star in one of the restaurants of a family friend that we know, who offered to train her about the work culture. She would come back from Rodin, from a boarding school, and go and work over the weekends, twice a month. And that has been the culture that my daughter had. She came back from China. She's been in China for almost 12 years. My daughter came back when she now could actually speak, read and write, and was also involved in the issues of translation and interpretation. She was invited by Gavin, who has known her as a little girl, long before the positions of government. And Gavin had an interest in understanding some of the issues that he would have to deal with when it comes to businesses in China. And that has been the arrangement. He actually, like any other child, I've read even in your own profile how you used to do the part-time jobs during school holidays. Many of us have done that. She was offered that because, Chair, before even this whole notion of politically exposed people, my children, my immediate family, remain unemployed, do not get opportunities because of their identity and association with me. She was offered this opportunity, and they made the arrangement, therefore, for Katlego to move around from point A to point B, doing that particular part-time job while she was at home. And this was an arrangement of 2 adults.
Now, he responds to that, because what you are saying is also what you put in your affidavit.
Yes.
Now, he responds to that on page 74. He says on paragraph 30, he says, save for noting the contents of this paragraph, I have no knowledge of the contents of the same, but I confirm that on occasions when Nomvula Paula Mokonyane's daughter was in South Africa, we received instructions from the late Gavin Watson to hire motor vehicles for her daughter on at least 3 occasions, of which 2 I personally dealt with. On a further, I'm over the page, on page 75. On a further occasion, Franz Foster, acting on the instructions of the late Gavin Watson, hired and personally took the car to the house of Nomvula Paula Mokonyane. This was an Audi A3 motor vehicle. I state further that the relationship between the late Gavin Watson and Nomvula Paula Mokonyane, together with looking after all her and her family's needs, was mutually beneficial to both the late Gavin Watson and BOSASA and Nomvula Paula Mokonyane. The late Gavin Watson made it clear to myself and other directorate on various occasions that because of Nomvula Paula Mokonyane's relationship with late Gavin Watson and the Watson family and BOSASA, which extended over decades of time, the late Gavin Watson repeatedly made it clear to myself and others the important positions she held in government and at a provincial level. It was evident that Nomvula Paula Mokonyane had the respect and eminence in the top government circles, and because of her relationship with the top echelon.
I think, Mr. Noche, that's too long. By the time you finish, Ms. Mokonyane might not remember all of that. Do you want to break it up to put to her what you want her to deal with?
All I want is your comment on the issues he raises. Yeah.
My facts still remain the same around my daughter. And secondly, my issues that I have raised about how he's trying to give me the authority and influence that I have, again smacks of an act of desperation, because for the record, even Mr. Nixon and others do confirm that they've checked through. There's never been where I'm responsible, have been able to grant BOSASA any business opportunity, or out of our relationship, they've been able to work in the space that I have been assigned the task to lead.
Basically, your response insofar as Mr. Agrizzi's evidence relates to your daughter is, my daughter is an adult. She has had a relationship with the Watson family for a long time, and you don't deny what is written about her or cars being hired for her. All you are saying is she and Mr. Gavin Watson had their own relationship and they made their own arrangements. You have nothing to do with
Yes,
that.
Chair.
That's the
Yes,
gist of
Chair.
your answer.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
And as for the elaborations on 30.4 and so forth, I think I would further challenge him to substantiate this influence that he's referring to.
Yes.
Now, on page 30, on paragraph 34, you respond to Mr. Agrizzi's affidavit, wherein he says, BOSASA also catered for several ANC rallies and on your instructions. He said,
Chairperson, again, I actually realized I forgot the constitution of the ANC. The fundraising committee of the ANC is headed by the Treasurer General of the ANC. There is a fundraising committee, and there are fundraising initiatives. It is not the individual. No individual has the capacity and the ability to go all out and go and look for resources. You have to actually work and even be led by a Treasurer General of the African National Congress. I've never been a treasurer of the ANC. I've been a treasurer of the South African Communist Party here in Gauteng, in the Southern Transvaal. And I have been part of those who work and organize ANC events. And for the record, I can't deny that BOSASA had actually come out to support the ANC in its initiatives.
So,
But-
so you accept that BOSASA supported the ANC and may have funded some of its rallies as well, but what you are saying is it was not at your request.
No, it would never be even at my request. There are
Yes.
different even ways of raising funds.
Yes.
People make endorsements. The ANC has never hidden its fundraising initiatives. People have come to the gala dinners of the ANC. People have been acknowledged. As I have shown here, we even have a book with different companies, including Telkom, that have come out publicly to support a conference of the ANC. So I don't have that authority. And prior to any program being implemented, you put what the resources are and what will be required, and together with the leadership of the ANC in its entirety, you all adopt that program and its implementation. And that's why even for the record now, I'm saying I can't deny the fact that BOSASA supported the ANC. I can't deny the fact that BOSASA Office Park has been on more than one occasion an elections operations center of the ANC. I can't deny the fact that sorry, Chair, I think it's the air conditioner. I can't deny the fact that BOSASA has also not only worked with the African National Congress at the national level, but also with the ANC, even here in the West Rand, hosting the regional conferences, hosting the provincial meetings of the ANC here in Gauteng, providing food, lunch packs because of their kitchen capacity for our volunteers, and even providing for people who are coming to our rallies. And lastly,
Maybe we should switch off the
Yes, please.
aircon, yeah.
there was a time when I was referred to a diva minister when I was supposed to move to an office that has carpets. But this is me, Chairperson.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
They'll switch it off. Let me understand your evidence correctly. If a member of the
so
ANC...
I think she's
Can I-
supposed to do something.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Chairperson, she had asked me during some breaks whether she can bring a humidifier or something like that. I was not sure.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it something you would like to have immediately?
Yes, we can proceed, but I will bring it. I will
Okay,
bring
no,
it.
that's fine. I just want to understand your evidence properly with regard to fundraising and individual members of the ANC or individual leaders of the ANC. If I'm a member of the ANC or if I'm one of the leaders of the ANC, can I not approach a company and say, you know, the ANC is going to have a function or a rally or whatever, or meeting, can you please contribute or sponsor that function or contribute to whatever expenses the party is going to incur in regard to that function to make it a success? Can I not go to a company as an individual, get them to agree, and maybe once they have agreed, I then tell the formal structure that I've spoken to BOSASA or whoever, Telkom, will you then take it from there when they will expect your letter, Mr. Treasurer General, or something like that?
In fact, what happens is the opposite. The fundraising committee sits, the fundraising committee and the TG, together with those that are responsible for organizing, will also come together, and other officials will identify the needs and will identify what needs to be done. And the chair, who is the treasurer of the ANC, is the one then who will go out and identify those that have to be approached. Others voluntarily come forward. They come to the ANC and say, what can we help you with? We want to endorse your manifesto. How can we lend a hand? We subscribe to your mission. How can we do that? Then the Treasurer General will then make all of you to make a follow-up depending on what you are responsible for. If I have a responsibility of filling 2 stadiums back to back at the same time, I would be assigned the responsibility of chairing the mobilization committee of the ANC and knowing everything about who's going to be a marshal, when are we going to get the stadium, when are people going to come, people have to be fed, where are we getting the resources, and there will be different work streams. And finally, the authority gets signed off by an organization, through an organizational process. So you can't just, you don't do things on your own, because at the end of the day, the party must actually account. And hence, post the events, there will be a token of appreciation that goes to the sponsors to say, "Ningadinwa nangomso." You know, I don't know how to say it in English, but that's how we do it. "Ningadinwa nangomso." And they will do that. And they would even say, proudly sponsored by so and so. Like you have seen with the Telkom book, it's not a secret, and the different telecommunication businesses. That's what would happen, Chairperson. And finally, you then, when you run a command center for an event, like Nomvula being the head of organizing in the ANC, you then have to know, when is the food coming? When are the marshals going to eat? Has the food been delivered at the pickup points of the pickup points of the buses? And all those things are not necessarily you, but because this person acts now, you know, in this particular way, he thinks I'm the alpha and omega of the ANC. Never. There are structures and systems to deal with these matters.
But are you saying it's not allowed by the ANC for an individual member or leader, unless they are
Assigned. Treasury
General or specifically assigned?
Yes.
They are not allowed to approach potential funders or sponsors and ask to sponsor and then get the organization or the relevant structure to formalize the arrangement later?
No, when you have a contact, you must present it before the Treasurer General
Yes.
and to the committee. And
Yes.
then it must then be institutionalized and made to be part of the process.
Yes. Okay.
Now, just in this case, I understand, you knew the Watsons before even ANC got into government.
I've known the Watsons from as far back as pre-democracy, yes. I've known them. I've known actually Ronnie Watson before I came to know Gavin Watson. I've worked with Ronnie Watson. I've met the Watson family when I was part of the National Civic Organization and when we were under the UDF organizing the consumer boycotts. And one of the areas that had the longest consumer boycott was in Port Elizabeth and here, Chairperson, in Kagiso, in Mogale. One of the longest boycotts that even took out Greyhound buses. That area till today has no bus company that operates because we took out Greyhound, which was colluding with the apartheid system and the Wetdukes who were actually killing our people. When there was the round-tree strike by the unions, I was a trade unionist. I know that period. I also met them when there was those long strikes and various other acts. And I also know them for having assisted the ANC in our ready-to-govern programs, where they took people like Popo Molefe and many other people, including myself, to the Wharton School of Business. And we all went there. We were joined by, I think it was Valance Watson, who went with us, or Ronnie, I can't recall. But that's how far back I know the Watson family. I've also known their generosity when there was no tender, when they used to support the detainees, when they used to support the underground operations. And when the issue of BOSASA and the relationship with the ANC came, it was a natural relationship of fellow fighters coming together, fellow freedom fighters coming together, and their commitment and option to support the ANC was not something that I would actually frown upon compared to maybe getting fidelity cards. I don't know fidelity cards except them being FG as I know it. So that's how I relate with that situation of knowing the Watson family.
Now, are you saying then that the BOSASA volunteered on their own without someone introducing them to the ANC, to support the ANC?
The Watson family are members of the ANC. And I think it was out of their own conviction and the love for this country that they have always been generous, even before BOSASA was there.
Now, when the Watson family was involved then in BOSASA, and they had government tenders, rendering services to government, was it not a problem to the ANC that they would continue supporting the ANC?
I do not want to speak for the African National Congress here. I've come to present myself, but still, I do not believe that there was anything untoward. As I've said, we've seen even an SOE coming out publicly to support the African National Congress. Golf courses, premiers, golf courses, chairpersons, golf courses, presidents, golf courses, all these activities are funded and supported by the private sector, who many of them have got things to do. Not only the black business, we've seen even those that are in the wine industries and everybody endorsing our events, not only during Jacob Zuma's time, even during Madiba's time, even during Comrade Thabo Mbeki's time, Comrade Kalima's time. Business has been quite good for the African National Congress, those who believe in what the ANC stands for.
Now, Agrizzi's response to your answer on page 75, paragraph 31. She says, she denies that you never approached himself or the BOSASA to cater for ANC rallies. He says, I'm reading on page 76, The true and correct position is that on numerous occasions, for election rallies and on occasions, and for ANC Lekgotla, BOSASA set up, funded, and catered for various municipal, provincial, and general elections. On numerous occasions, this was at Nomvula Paula Mokonyane request to late Gavin Watson, because you say you deny this.
No, it will not be at my personal request. I've never done that, but he's also just showing how he is so naive on understanding the ANC. The head of organizing is responsible for organizing. The ANC must provide the resources. The head of organizing is not the convener of the Lekgotla. Lekgotla is convened by the SG of the African National Congress.
Now, on page, whilst we're still on page 76, he says, I'm attaching here to, as Annexure AG1, a copy of an email dated 15 April 2011, addressed to Nomvula Paula Mokonyane and her official email reporting to her on the ANC call center. And that AG1 is on page 99.
Yes, it's about the call center.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
You know about this?
I know about the call center, and it was the call center for the ANC's operations. It was not from Mkhize or Mokonyane.
But he says here, and I'm looking at AG1. You excuse me, at times this trips me, this when the emails are printed.
Where is it?
Here, it seems as if there is,
It's on
page 99, sorry. Page 99. There at the top, there is this email seems to be from Agrizzi, and it's to nomvula.mokonyane@gauteng.gov.za and Sandy, then in brackets, Nomvula PA, Gavin Watson, then the subject is report. So it seems as if, here if I understand it, Agrizzi sent an email to you on the 11th of April 2011.
It was about the Ops Center for Elections of
I'm sorry, before you respond, Ms. Mokonyane, Mr. Notcher, read this, the email. If is the one at the bottom supposed to be an attachment to the one at the top, or what? As it says, sent via mobile phone, and then says begin forwarded message. Is the message at the bottom what was being sent by from Mr. Agrizzi?
It seems as if the message at the bottom is, Agrizzi sends the message that follow below.
Yes, okay. So if that's the message that he sent, then I think you must just read it so that we know what it says before she responds.
Well, the message is from Agrizzi, Chief Operations Officer, BOSASA Group of Companies, Bokale Business Center in Gauteng. And it's from Angelo Agrizzi.bosasa.com and Gina Peters at bosasa.com, and then the phone number. Then being forwarded. What is forwarded, it seems as if it's from Johan Fourie at johan.fourie@bosasa.com, and that email was to Sandy Thomas at gauteng.gov.za, and then the reports, and then the contents reads, Dear Sandy, attached for your perusal and comment are the following reports on the Election Contact Center activities. 1, call statistics for the 13th and 14th of April. 2, canvassing information reports to date. And then he says, please let me know if there's anything else you would like reporting on, or the formatting of the reports. If you find these reports useful, I can mail them to you on a daily basis. And then over the page, And then it's Johan Fore, BOSASA IT, PTY Ltd. And then it wants people think before you print. And then there's the email from, it attaches also the email from Agrizzi to Sandy Thomas. It says, as discussed, we will send reports through, and it's from Agrizzi. And then from 102, Chair, it's a whole host of the reports.
Are you saying those are reports from 102, page 102?
102 to 115.
Yes.
So, Mrs. Mokonyane, it seems as if Agrizzi will send you an email on the 15th of April, giving this report.
My take through you, Chair, is that the message was forwarded from Johan Fore to Sandy. And in this very email, it is all about the operations of an election. There is no condition that is set that on condition you deal with this for us, or on condition we stand to benefit on this matter.
I think, Mrs. Mokonyane, what Mr. Agrizzi is trying to say here, remember he says, no, I know Mrs. Mokonyane. And he says, I even sent an email, received an email, sent an email to her. And that's why he says, I'm attaching here to, I'm reading his affidavit. I'm attaching here to AG1 a copy of an email dated 15 April 2011 addressed to Nomvula Mokonyane in her official email reporting to her on the ANC call center. And then he says this. He says this is important. This was done at her request.
It could not have been done at my request because it was not for my personal consumption. All that we needed as the head of organizing an elections was to be continuously be given the update and have a program, an operation center that will help the African National Congress to know the developments in terms of canvassing and in terms of the voter turnout. And of importance, you can see, when Johan Fore responded, they actually communicated directly with Sandy, who is my personal assistant, and they even indicated there that if they find these reports useful, they will then come back. And that was what actually happened.
Do you recall specifically this communication, or you don't recall it necessarily, but you are saying this is what would have happened, this would have been the context?
Chairperson, when we set programs for elections, we go on site where we will be operating from, whether it's in Lutuli House, whether it was in Shell House, whether it is at the BOSASA call center. You sit with all your teams, you work on the product. And most of the people who were on the IT side were the ones who were communicating directly with us. They are the ones who set the product that the African National Congress required. And for them to then report to the ANC, it was an obvious case. I may not remember this record, but it's an obvious case. They will not just go and look for an administrator in the ANC, they will look for the head of elections. Just as the taxi owners, Santaco would also be looking for me when we have to sort out the pickup points and when we have to work out how we're going to fill up two stadiums at the same time, back to back.
I think part of the point that Mr. Agrizzi seeks to make through providing this email, as I understand it, may be this, that on his version, he says, in effect, he had a lot of interactions with you. You remember when we started his affidavit, in his affidavit he said business meetings or social visits. He even said he attended your 50th birthday party. But he also says that in a number of meetings, he was with Mr. Gavin Watson and yourself. He says in other meetings, you would have met Mr. Gavin Watson without him, but he says some of the meetings he was there. He seems to say, I've had a lot of interactions with Ms. Nomvula Mokonyane, but when one reads your response, it seems to suggest that you have not had any interaction with Mr. Gavin Watson.
With
May-
Agrizzi.
Maybe minimal, but you might say not even minimal. You didn't have any interactions with him. And maybe through this email, he is saying, here is just one instance where I had interactions with her office.
Mr. Agrizzi will not know what was discussed in meetings and everything that I was in contact with Mr. Gavin Watson on. He will only feature when now we operationalize these kind of activities. And that's when you'll come across him at the site, when he would come across and meet us and tell us that you'll work with your 140 and all those things. But all the arrangements would have been arrangements that BOSASA had done directly with the NC and not with me personally.
Okay, thank you.
Now, ma'am, just to, before we leave off this point, tell me, where would Mr. Agrizzi...
I'm sorry, we are at 1:03 already.
Sure, can I just one question, then I leave AG1.
Okay.
When would Mr. Agrizzi have obtained your email address?
They would have obtained my email address from the contacts and they would have obtained my contacts from the interactions that we've had with BOSASA and us in terms of preparing for the ANC's activities. Obviously, you'll need to give contacts to one another to say, this is how we'll communicate and so on and so forth.
Okay, all right. Let's take the lunch adjournment. We'll resume at 2:00. We adjourn.